So what we're going to do here is we're going to review everything we learned last week. Quickly review everything we did last week, number one. Number two, the next assignment you're going to do on your own, you're going to construct your own template, okay? So what do I mean by template is that every one of you is turning in two things. You're turning in a practice today. Next week, you're turning in your own template, okay? So what is a template? A template is, so what's going to happen is I can open up this Photoshop document and I can manipulate this template. And you as a gold team or you as a maroon team agree this is the template we're using for the rest of this quarter, right? So that you don't have to do all this construction that we're doing. So like this is another template, right? This is the template you're going to start with on Monday and Tuesday, right? And we're doing this so that it's way easier. So you don't have to do all this base construction every single time. You just kind of have to hop in, throw a graphic in or a picture, add some text to the relevant information, and then submit that as a PNG to the graphic share folder, and then your technical director has your graphic for that show, right? So that's the goal. It's not to become a master of Photoshop right now. The goal is to just know enough Photoshop so that you can manipulate other things and that you can make your own template. Okay. So I'm going to quickly review everything we need to do. All right. First off, and I'm going to kind of go backwards. Everyone have this template open or the practice open? Good? All right. So you are going to turn something in today from this. Okay. Newsflash. Mr. G no longer has the flu. Now, Mr. Amoroso has the flu. Let me double check that. Just want to double check the share file here. Oop. I want to make sure I have the right picture ready. Should have looked at that before. Dude. Yeah, let's do Mr. Amoroso. Mr. Amoroso has the flu now, okay? So let's switch this all. So by switching all of this, we're going to learn how to manipulate our pictures, okay? So this is our review. So it's no longer Mr. G's time, it's Mr. Amoroso's time. So I'm going to grab here Mr. Amoroso, and I'm going to drag that picture over into Photoshop and let it go. Boop! And this is a very low resolution picture. And I'm going to make it bigger. So notice when I put the picture in, I get this thing here called a wireframe. Who remembers what I have to do to make this X go away? And I can actually start working with my picture. Click return. Okay. So, undo. Yeah. Yes. Well, the other one's going to be a little trickier to crop out, but yes, you can. Which is what I'll be showing in a second. So, how do you do it again? You find that folder. The folder is called Graphics Practice. It should be on your desktop. If it's not on your desktop, it's under Digicom Viz Pickup. Find the picture of Mr. Amoroso. I'm going to show you tricks for other things in a second. Right? So here's Mr. Amoroso. I just take this picture. I click and hold, and I drag it right into my field in Photoshop. That's it. This is why I bought 27-inch screens, so that you can have Photoshop kind of open. You can still kind of explore your desktop. Right? This is why I have very, very big screens, to make this very easy for you. So you're welcome. After you drop it in, you get what's called a wireframe, this X here, and I can make it bigger. If I hold the shift key, it locks the aspect ratio so I don't make him look fatter or skinnier, right? And I get it to a size that I think I like, and then I can move it around by pressing the selection tool up here, or by pressing V. Okay. Now, let's get rid of Mr. G here. Let's get rid of this goofball. Couple things you can do. Remember your layers over here. I could hide it. Do you know what? I cropped that really well. I might want to save that for later. I could hide it by hitting the eyeball. Or if I want to get rid of it completely, I can select the layer and press delete. So either I can hide it by clicking the eyeball, or I can select the layer and press delete. I don't care what you do as long as you don't see my face anymore and you only see Mr. Amoroso's face. Now I'm going to move Mr. Amoroso here, and I made him kind of small. Does anyone remember the hotkey or the name of how to re-manipulate the size of this image?
Ooh,
I know you know, and I know Gigi and Tom know, and I know Travis probably knows. But who else would know? How do I, remember how I had that wireframe, right? How do I get that back to resize it? Huh? What? It's not a tool. I know. This is why I'm quizzing you. I know you know, Abel. No, because I'm trying to get them to think about it. It's a weird word for move. In geometry, it's the word for move. Yes. Transform starts with a what? T. So Command T is considered free transform. Or if you go up here to say edit and you choose free transform, bam, right there. So I know that's a little confusing. So why do they call it transform instead of move? It's because you're actually, it considers everything here on an X and a Y grid. It's very geometry based. And transform is geometry's word for moving. So you use transform. So either Command T or edit free transform. Dre. That's it, Command T. So make sure you're on your picture layer. And you hit Command T. To change the scale of your picture, you can grab this corner. If you hold the Shift key down, it locks the aspect ratio. So I wanted to make them a little bit bigger. And then don't forget to hit return when you're done. Right? You can't do, Photoshop won't let you do anything until you hit return. And that thing goes away. So Command T brings it up. Oops, Command T brings it up. There you go. And then Enter takes it away. Okay, now, Mr. Amoroso might be a little tougher to cut because this white right here is very, 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 very similar to the gray, right? And this is where the magic wand doesn't become so magic. So I'm going to show you some alternatives. Okay. So I'm going to do a selection here. I'm going to try the magic wand. If for some reason you can't find the magic wand, remember it is buried underneath the quick selection tool. So it might look like this. So you got your arrow, you got your marquee, you got your lasso, and then you have your quick selection tool. If you click and hold the quick selection tool, you'll go to your magic wand. Remember, the top bar changes. The top bar changes every time you go to a different tool. The top bar, this horizontal bar, is your options. And the option we might play with is called tolerance. Okay? So if, it does kind of look like tolerance. Yep. Yeah, Malik. Magic wand. So look up here. I got 1, 2, 3, 4. It's the fourth one down. It might look like quick selection. So if I left click and hold, it'll go to that one. You find it now? All right. I'm going to select the gray area and see what happens. Oh, that's not helpful. Right? It's selecting all of his shirt. Okay? So what actually might help is the tolerance is pretty high. Okay? If I want to lower the tolerance, it's going to be more picky about where to set its border. So I'm going to lower the tolerance from 32 to 12. That's right. What number? 12. It's not letting. hit Command D. So Command D is for deselecting. So 2 hotkeys I'm throwing out at you. Command T, transform. Command D, deselect. Oops, not F, D. Shit. Double check that you're on the right layer. Make sure you're on a picture layer. Is that it? Okay. All right, now that I have a 12 tolerance, let's see what happens. Oh, it cut it off pretty well right there, but did it cut the whole thing? No. So a trick you're gonna need to learn is that shift, it doesn't matter what program you're in. If you're in Final Cut, if you're in Adobe Premiere, if you're on Apple, your desktop, any program, normally holding the shift key adds to your selection. So I don't know if you can see my icon. When I hold the shift key, it adds to that selection. So, you guys see what I just did? So the border's right here. I hit shift, and it keeps that selection, and it adds even more. And then I can do it one more time, shift, and maybe over here, boop, and then maybe that little itty bitty corner. And it's still got some of his shirt. So shifting grows your selection. If you shift and click again, it'll grow it. If I don't hit shift, it restarts the whole thing. So it's still got some of his shirt. Those blue stripes are very similar to the gray background. I could lower the tolerance. I could try to hit Alt and subtract from that area. So shift adds, Alt subtracts. Control usually gives you options. All right. Oh, I'm sorry, option. Sorry, option. It used to be called Alt, now it's option. I think on a PC it might be called Alt. Now, honestly, if we're going fast for a show and you cut out a little right here, I'm not going to care. I'm going to show you another tool in a second, but this is good enough for us, okay? So if you got a little bit there, you don't have to get so nitpicky. I know some of you want to get more nitpicky. Don't worry, I'm going to show you other tools in a second, but this is great. Okay. And then you're going to press delete. I'm doing something wrong on purpose. You're going to press delete. And what happens when you press delete? It says what? Cannot complete. Smart object is not directly editable. Remember, I made you tell your neighbor something. What did you tell your neighbor last week? Huh? No, not enter. What? Rasterize. Tell your neighbor again. Hey, Malik, you're my neighbor. Oh, no, Melissa's your neighbor. Melissa, tell Malik. There you go. Tania, tell Malik. Malik, tell Tania. Rasterize. I know it's a tough one to remember. I know there's a lot of new terms, right? Right-click and choose Rasterize the Layer, right? And I'm not even going to tell you the whole meaning behind the word and everything. So just remember Rasterize. Now when you press delete, it goes away. Oh, you got to right-click on the layer. I'm sorry, I did that really fast. My bad. Oops. And remember, you have to hit Alt or Option Command Z to go back more than one step. So on my layer here, if you see this little icon right here, this icon's called a quote-unquote smart object. Don't let me explain it. It's a smart object. And to get rid of that smart object means you can't delete stuff. So when I right-click and choose Rasterize, basically rasterizing is making it an editable layer. So you got to go to your layer here, right-click, and choose Rasterize. And in Photoshop, it's all about these layers here. Photoshop is all about these layers here. So once I rasterize it, then I can hit delete. There you go. you gotta click on the letters of the layer, not the picture of the layer, which I know is even more confusing. Why is this looking at me? All right, how do I get rid of these lines? The ants marching. Deselect. How do I do that? Command D. Deselect. There you go. And now to move it, I'm either going to hit this button here or press V. And now I can kind of push them around. But what's the problem with my picture here? It's too big. I got to get rid of this shit. Right? So the good news is I know that it's getting kind of cut off, so I don't have to be precise. So I'm just going to use this marquee tool here. I'm just going to kind of delete stuff until it kind of gets cropped out. I'm not even going to, I'm being really sloppy with it. There you go. So I got a little crumbs on the bottom here. So because I know this is kind of blocking most of it, I just wanted to crop him a little bit, and again, I'm being sloppy with it, but that's going to be good enough for our graphic. So you can crop stuff out different ways. I use the elliptical tool. You do have a rectangle, and you do have other ways of making a shape. I think if you're, yeah, so like here, that's my selection. If I go back to my arrow, oh, no. There is a way, I forget how to do it. There is a way. It's escaping me right now. Okay, Command D for deselect. So that the ants are a selection. So then you want to deselect it. You hit Command D. Dre. Yeah. Oh, so you already have selection. Oh, you know what? If you're not remembering hotkeys, and I know a lot of you guys are opposed to hotkeys, and hotkeys are amazing and amazing. But if you have a selection and you want to get rid of a selection, let's say I selected his forehead. If I select anywhere off my image, selections go away. So totally forgot to deselect something. An easier way that you might remember better is if you just click off of your picture with the selection tool, the selection goes away. So if you can't remember Command D, you guys see that? I select his forehead. Oh, I didn't want to select his forehead. I click off here with the selection tool, it disappears. Okay. We're going to do one more picture thing after we reshape something and after we do text again. Let's do text now. Okay? Go ahead and hit save, Command S. Go ahead and hit save. And now it's no longer Mr. G has a bad case of the flu. It's Mr. Amoroso. What happened to Mr. Amoroso? Got hit by a car. There we go. That's great. I like going morbid. All right, so go T, especially because it's Amoroso. Amoroso will appreciate it. If I press T, it goes to my text tool, or I can just select my text tool. Not Command T, but if I hit T, it goes to my text tool, and I can click right on the text I've already typed and retype it. All right, so if I hit T, or I hit the T icon, and I double click on my text here, right? I can say, and when we're doing graphics, keep your text to headline speak. Okay, what do I mean by headline speak? Like I shouldn't have, maybe has a back this. So for this one, I'm just gonna put Amoroso hit by a car. Hit by car, even better. Sorry. There you go. To change my text here, I'm going to go to my T tool. the thing right there, if I just press T, just straight up T, not Command T, but just straight up T, it also activates it. And then I can click on the text here. I'm just going to highlight it all. You can move it around. If you get off of your T tool, you can move your text around. You can also hit Command T with your text. These are all great questions. Remember, my options for my text are up above. So if I wanted to change the color, I'm not going to. But if I wanted to change the color, or if I wanted to change the font, right, I can change the font to something else. And I'm going to call Amoroso has a bad, oh no, hit by car. On Ringwood. So I'm going to hit Command T again. Oops, Command T.
Can you put that out there on live and then just like instead of wait?
I would prefer we don't. If there were any teacher that we could kind of joke about, it could be him. All right. All right. Let me show you one more thing. We'll be doing more Photoshop later. Again, right, I'm just wanting to give you the basics so that you can make basic graphics out of your templates. Let me show you one more thing. Your text and your boxes, every layer has quote-unquote options, okay? So go to your text layer here for a second. And if you right-click on your text layer, there's a thing here called blending options. Blending options. Right? And so it gives you this layer style. Couple blending there's a whole bunch. There's a lot of information to take in there. You can explore those things later. The two things I wanted to show you was transparency and drop shadow. So right up top where it says general blending, I can say normal blend mode. And then I have this thing called opacity. Opacity is the antonym for transparency. So if it's 100% opaque, it's 0% transparent. If it's 100% transparent, it's 0% opaque. Just kind of, that's a new vocab word for you, opacity, right? And as I pull that down, you notice it kind of becomes transparent. Now over a maroon, it doesn't really do anything. But if I were to move my text layer over Adrian's face here, right? And then I go back to transparency, right click, blending options. I have let me move this around, get rid of my little zoomy zoom. So you can kind of superimpose stuff, just like you do in Premiere, right, with opacity, okay? That's one thing to kind of know for other, the reason why I'm showing you opacity is maybe you want to put another text here, right? Like if you want to be like, if I wanted to do another type tool right here and say, get well soon, Command A, change it to the maroon, right? And then I wanted to kind of get it so you can still kind of see his face a little bit more. I can play with that transparency. So it still shows through, right? It kind of has this watermark effect. The other fun thing I like to play with is, two more things, I'm sorry, stroke and drop shadow. So once again, other things you can do is Amoroso hit by car, right click blending options. You can choose stroke, and stroke is, remember just like in Premiere, stroke is Adobe's word for outline. So if I click on stroke, checking it on activates it, and then stroke, I'm going to give it a size. Now you can't really see it right now because it's maroon. It's the same color as that. But if I wanted to give it a different color, right, now I have this like weird blue outline. Again, a stroke is really handy when you're pulling your text over a large, very noisy scene, right? If you have a high contrast stroke, if you have like white text with a black outline or black text with a white outline, usually that's visible over anything. or if you have a high contrast, and we have high contrast colors. We have a maroon and a gold. So if you have a gold outline and a maroon text color, that usually is seen over lots of busy, like where it's bright, you can see the letter, the maroon part. Where it's dark, you can see the gold part. So it's always a good idea to have text if you're using text over images. Last thing, I can also do my stroke, which is the outline, and then there's also drop shadow. And drop shadow kind of gives a nice depth. So again, there's opacity for the shadow, and then there's the angle of which I want the shadow to go, and then there's the distance from the shadow, and there, you can see it there, right? And you can make the drop shadow even bigger sometimes to kind of make it dramatic. Oops. There you go. There it is. Oh, that's the size of its blur. And there's a few other options there. So I can make a drop shadow, and that kind of makes the text kind of look like it's popping out a little bit. That's another fun one to play with. You can even change the color of the drop shadow. Like I can make a green drop shadow. Okay. All right. Questions? Okay. Yeah.
How do you get to all those strokes?
Right any layer here. Right click and choose blending options. So this layer window, it seems unimportant, but this layer window is as important as the tracks in Premiere, right? This kind of gets you. So you always, usually when you have a problem, I can't click on this, it's not doing what I want. Usually it's because you're not selecting the right layer. Okay. All right. Let's save this. Oh yeah, before we save it. So let's drop this down. Hide the Adrian layer. And if there's a background that's white, hide the background that's white so you see a checkerboard. How do I hide things? I hit this little thing here. So I also gave you the colors, right? So if you hide the colors and hide the layers, hide the colors and you hide the layers, you're all set. All right. And then we're going to turn this in. Okay. And all our graphics need to be PNG files. Portable network graphic files. I think it's portable. You guys know what JPEG stands for? Joint Photographer Expert Group. You guys know what GIF stands for? And this is a GIF classroom. It's not GIF here. In I3, it's GIF. And so it's, what is it? Graphical Interchange Format. Everyone knows it because of the GIF-GIF controversy. What's MPEG stand for? So JPEG, MPEG, similar thing. You should know the egg part. Expert group. What would be MP for movies? Motion picture. Yep. Motion picture expert group. What other ones? PNG, portable network graphics. PSD, Photoshop document. There's a whole bunch of stuff. All right. Huh? Yeah. You can either delete it or hide it. Delete it or hide it. And you're going to just turn this in. So Command-Shift-Save. And you want to change this to, this is why I was going over all that, change this to PNG. The difference between a JPEG and a PNG is PNGs have a fourth layer. Okay? Oh, Command-Shift-S, or we can go, File, Save As. File, Save As. Okay, save is just going to save it as a Photoshop document. And it's always good to save. Command-S, save. Now I'm going to hit File, Save As, or Command-Shift-S. Thank you for, sometimes I go really fast, thank you. Doing a Save As is going to make a copy, but in Photoshop, it's going to let me change the type of file. If I were to load a Photoshop file into the TriCaster, it would not read it. If I were to make it a JPEG, please don't make it a JPEG. There's 3 channels in a picture: red, green, and blue. And by taking red, green, and blue, you get all the colors. And a JPEG only has those 3 channels because it wants to compress things. A PNG file, and there's other formats that do this as well, but PNG works for a TriCaster. The PNG has a 4th channel called the alpha channel. Alpha is for transparency. So everything where you see a checkerboard is going to be transparent, which means we can actually put a picture underneath it and still see it. But a JPEG doesn't preserve transparency. JPEG 2000s do, but the TriCaster doesn't read JPEG 2000s. So we have to use a PNG. So just start remembering PNG. I know there's a lot of stuff I'm like, just remember this. PNG. And you're going to call it GFX practice and then your last name. GFX_practice. I'll leave this up here for a very long time. So make sure it's a PNG. Yeah. So where it says format, say PNG. And when you get to the save, it's going to say, hey, what do you want to save it as? Choose large format. And make sure you're choosing your desktop. All right. Here we go and hit save. And you hit large file. All right. Where you're going to turn that in is please turn that into graphics share. This is where I'm going to remove them soon so you don't get them confused. But just like segment share is where you get all your segments to display. I'm going to move that into used. I'm going to move that one into used. Graphics share for Monday and Tuesday, you're going to put the pings in there. And your technical director or your graphics assistant is going to load those graphics onto a USB drive and load them into the TriCaster. So there's a new job or task for the graphic assistant or the technical director. All right. Yeah, so start dragging your graphics practice share. Make sure it's the PNG file and drag it into there.